Well, it is bleak to start with. The Arab masses have been betrayed by many of the regimes that has espoused unity and Arab nationalism. Specifically, you talk of Saddam Hussein's regime. You know, it was a Ba'athist party with all the ideals that it came with. It disappointed the Arabs. The Syrians, the same thing in Syria. But also because of the rise of Islamic fundamentalism. There has always been two camps in the Arab world between Islamic, well, not necessarily we call them Islamic fundamentalism, between the people who said Islam is the answer, and that you find that very popular in Egypt now, and between those who says Islam is a religion, as you keep it as a personal thing, Arab unity and Arab nationalism based on Arabism is the answer. The second part, the Ba'ath and the Arab socialists and the Arab socialists, the Arab nationalism, unfortunately have lost that battle. Now is the rise of Islam, Islamic fundamentalism, and it's getting worse. The people themselves aspire, but they are fearful, and they're disappointed, and they're very much disunited. Is the movement going to be revived during my lifetime? I doubt it. It's going to happen 50 years from now? I cannot tell. Well, how far it goes back? It goes back 1,400 years. That's what it is. And Shi'ism was born out of a political event rather than a theology. 1400 or 1450, whatever it is now, was born because of certain Arab tribes supported a camp that established the Arab Empire in Damascus, while the others proclaimed the Caliph or the successor of the Prophet, his grandson Hussein, and the two camps had literally a brutal military conflict. The first camp dominated. The ones who supported Hussein, the grandson of Muhammad, were defeated, and Shi'ism was born. And it was really a class war, more or less. The camp which won was the powerful merchants of the Arab Peninsula, and the ones who lost were the poor and dispossessed who supported Hussein. And that continued more or less. It became a theological thing where, you know, Islam, like any other religion, it branched out. But it never expressed itself in violence to the extent that it is now. I don't say I should qualify, it's not never, but not to the extent it is now. And the Arab Empire of Baghdad, for example, which is Sunni, which was Sunni by and large, had many of its components or its ministers or powerful people who were Shias as well. The Shias throughout felt that they were dispossessed, that the Sunnis didn't treat them well. And to a certain extent that was true. And that's true in any society where you have the majority abuse the minority. I don't find excuse, I'm not trying to excuse it. But in the particular case of Iraq, where you hear of the Shias were dispossessed and the Shias were not treated well by the minority Sunnis, really it needs more explanation than what we hear about it today. What it is, when Iraq gained its independence from the Ottomans and became a mandate territory under the British, a civilian government was formed in Baghdad. The Arab tribes, which were largely Shiites of the south, did not want to deal with the central government. They said, we got out of the Ottomans and now we're getting into the British. And the British even worse because they were European Christians. We are Arab Muslims. So they did not. Plus, the south was really a feudal society. The sheikhs, the leaders of those tribes, did not want to lose their power and their wealth. So they resisted a central government in Baghdad. In return, what the government in Baghdad did, says, okay, you can stay part of Iraq, you're Iraqi citizens and all this thing, but certain laws and certain powers of the central government will not apply to them. The feudal law will apply. So the feudal lords were in charge of disputes between the citizens, in charge of marriages and all those things which were really primarily because of religion. And to keep themselves in control, they discouraged their children, particularly women, from entering into schools. Most children of that period went to what they call the kutabs. Now you call them madrasas. Madrasa is really what in Arabic is a school. In those days they called them kutabs, which all what they learned was the Quran and memorized the Quran. So they were discouraged because if they get the educated people, then they lose their feudal power as well. But really, the Sunnis who control now, who were in power in Baghdad, you cannot say they discriminated against them. It's just they were not willing, because of their leaderships, to participate in the affairs of modern Iraq. Now the Iraqi, a lot of the Sunnis, the Iraqis particularly, the central and northern Iraq, were the poorer part of the Iraqi citizens. Most of the wealth were with the tribes. And the poorer Sunnis, what they did, they went the shortcuts to get employments. They went to two things: education, i.e. teaching, and military. The teaching is because you could become a primary school teacher there after grade 9. From grade 9 you enter the teacher's college for 2 years and become a teacher in a primary school. You finish high school, grade 12, in those days it was grade 11, you can go into the military academy. And the military academy, they house you, they feed you, they give you a monthly allowance, and then you become an officer. So those two things were the Sunnis really were the strongest. Eventually, Iraq after 58, after the revolution, was by and large under the control of the military. And that's why you have. So it is not necessarily because of discrimination and conflict. It's because of an event in history where these things happen. Most of the Iraqi leaders now, the Shiite leaders, to quote, who say, that we were discriminated against and all these things. If you look at them, and a lot of them come with the fancy title of Dr. Maliki and Dr. this and all that. Most of them were educated in the West, paid by the Iraqi government, which was controlled by the Sunnis. So this thing of we were discriminated, we were not, it's not. And until today, most of the wealth is in the hands of the Shiites. And this is exactly almost like what happened in Europe with the Jews. The Jews, because they were not encouraged or were not welcome to enter into certain things, they went into art, into banking, into all these things. The Shiites, because they did not go into education, the Jews did, of course, went for it, because their leadership did not encourage them to go into education. A lot of them went into business, and that's why most of the wealth is actually controlled by the Shiites. Yes, there has always been conflict, but it's not the way we think about it in the West and Islam. There are more other things intricate in it.
I have a question, which my sense is that much of the Arab world in the 1950s was a more secular society.
Absolutely.
Than it is now, which is, okay, so my question is, I suppose, often the defeat of an anti-colonialist, anti-imperialist movement for a more progressive society leads to the emergence of religion as kind of the default or second choice. You know, in that sort of, we tried socialism and it didn't work, and now we'll go to some kind of religious society. Is that the sense, or what happened to that secular promise in Arab society?
Well, the secular, as I said, because the Arabs felt betrayed by the socialist parties, i.e. primarily really the Ba'ath Party, which became extremely brutal. And they associated the brutality of the Ba'ath Party or the people who were supposed to be Ba'athists in the minds of the Arabs. It's not that it's Saddam Hussein or Assad or this or Mubarak or whatever it is. It's the Arab socialists, it's the Arab Baathists, it's all these things. So they felt, just as they were betrayed by the Europeans, they were betrayed by their own people who espoused unity in Arab, and by default they felt to what's comfortable to them, i.e. religion. People always sought comfort in religion. And that's why Arabs have, I mean, you find, compared to the 50s, most definitely there is more conservatism, and people, a lot of people even fearful of debating the issues. While during my childhood, I mean, you know, we debated the issues and we talked and all these things. But now you're afraid. It's not you don't want to offend. You're afraid to debate the issues when it comes to religion. Religion is extremely powerful in the Middle East now.